Hello, and welcome to episode 2.12, the Ashes to Ashes edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat, the podcast that covers the arts in northern Chautauqua County, sponsored by the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. My name is Tom Laughlin, and I'm your host as we bring you news and information about arts events at the Opera House and around the region, including interviews with artists and creators across the county. The release of this episode coincides with the Roman Catholic celebration of Ash Wednesday, marking the beginning of the 40-day season of Lent, leading to the celebration of Easter. As winter begins its agonizingly slow retreat, tantalizing tastes of spring begin to appear. The days are noticeably longer, and if you're lucky, you might catch some snowdrop lilies making their appearance. We've been lucky so far in that the winter here has been quite mild. I don't think I've had my snowblower out since 2023 began. I've lived in the region long enough, however, to know that it's too soon to think that there will be no more snow for the season. But we can always hope. At the 1891 Fredonia Opera House, there's only one sure sign of spring, when our box office manager begins wearing her sandals. Not quite yet, she says. Not quite yet. I just hope she hasn't given up sandal wearing for Lent. One thing that can always liven up a winter evening is a little live music, and we have just that coming up. The trio of Lipp, Chris English, and Rick Robertson, all from the Naples Valley, Rochester area, will be bringing their blend of bluegrass, roots, and old-time acoustic music to the Opera House on Friday, February 24th at 7:30 p.m. I managed to catch up with Lipp by telephone in the midst of his current tour through Colorado. Joining me all the way from Boulder, Colorado, as he makes his way around the Colorado area on tour is Mr. Lipp. And Aaron and a couple of his friends are going to be coming to the 1891 Fredonia Opera House on Friday, February 24th, a couple of days from now. They'll be there at 7:30 p.m. And from what I can gather, if you get to that concert, you're going to be in for quite a wide variety of musical entertainment. Aaron, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. We're really looking forward to this Opera House show when we get back, and it's grateful to be playing such a nice room.
Yeah, it's usually musicians usually like it there because it's got nice acoustics, and it's a pretty cozy space. So you're actually kind of a Western, not quite a Western New York local boy, but you come from, and I think right now, if I read your information carefully, you're living out in Naples, New York. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a beautiful little town. I've been through it any number of times, and it's probably the only place I can think of in the United States where you can get, a great pie. I think only Naples and around our area, the only two places they've ever heard of it.
Yeah, Naples is kind of known for that and the Grape Festival, and they're actually quite good despite what some people might think when they hear the term grape pie. Some people just don't really know what to think, but once they have one, the tartness really goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. I'm a big fan of them. So Tell me a little bit about your musical background. You grew up around music. I guess your family must have had a lot of music, and somehow you got exposed to all different kinds of sounds.
Yeah, I've been started playing piano when I was 4. My parents are musicians, and I always just really loved it, and I was really interested in it from a young age. And I got pretty heavily into all types of music when I was a kid, like classical and jazz, and then, of course, rock and roll. When I was a teenager, discovered Jimi Hendrix and the Grateful Dead, and then through that, kind of found my way into bluegrass. So I've been playing a bunch of different styles of music since I was young. I played in all the bands at school and had like a rock band growing up, playing classic rock. Then I joined this band called Giant Panda Gorilla Dub Squad, playing Hammond B3 organ and clavinet and some lap steel guitar. In that band for about 7 years. Rochester band, playing like roots reggae and Afrobeat music. It's really, really fun band. Really kind of different type of, didn't sound like any of the other bands in this same genre. So we had a good time. That was a lot of my formative years. From like age 16 to 23, I think I was in that band. Guys who were much older than me. And got exposed to a lot of great music through them, and a lot of experience being on the road. After that, I toured with this guy Robert Randolph, the Family Band, the pedal steel guitar player from New York City area, who's pretty world renowned at this point. I was playing organ in that band too, and I played with him for about a year. We did some pretty heavy touring on a tour bus, and went to Europe a couple of times, and got to meet some great people. And then I decided I wanted to sort of do my own thing and move back to the country and build a house and start a band and start writing more of my own songs and do my own thing. So I started a couple bands then and got pretty heavily into old-time fiddling and clawhammer banjo playing, flat picking guitar, writing songs, and learning just all these old fiddle tunes and listening and learning a lot of Doc Watson stuff. And I really didn't tour for a while up until recently, joining the Sam Grisman Project. Yeah, that's where I'm out on tour now. We did a West Coast tour and in January last month, and now we're out in Colorado doing like 9 shows. But yeah, throughout that time I was home, I was in several different bands, including a band with one of the guys who's in the Sam Grisman Project now, Rick Robertson. He's been a good friend of mine and a long-time musical brother, and he's an amazing singer and songwriter and multi-instrumentalist, and we both kind of switch off on different things, and we've been friends for probably 12 or 13 years, and reconnected a few years ago and started up this project, Sam, and Chris English is an amazing drummer, singer, and songwriter from Rochester. A lot of people know Chris English or Chris Hollywood. So, and that's the Rick and Chris and I are the trio that's coming to the Fredonia Opera House. So it's basically this same band that's out here without Sam on the bass.
I see. Uh-huh.
So we do a handful of originals out here, but a lot of David Grisman music and Jerry Garcia music done our own way with originals like mixed in. So we're going to do probably more of an original focus set at Fredonia, probably do acoustic and electric. And we've, since we've all been living up there in the Finger Lakes, all 3 of us live up there now, we've been playing quite a bit as a trio, and I spent many years playing solo gigs and just so many different duos and little side projects that I had up there. But now that I'm on the road a lot, I think I'm gonna focus more on playing bigger rooms, less often. There's a lot of I was just playing a lot and working really hard, playing breweries and wineries and weddings and all that. But I think it's time to scale that back a little bit and start, focus more on making the music better and playing bigger rooms.
Right. Well, I noticed it in trying to scan and listen to as much of your music as I possibly could that you went from you were in a band called the Cabin Killers a number of years ago, about 2013, for a number of years after that. And they were a little bit more of a hard driving sound than you currently have now. I think you've got a couple of solo albums coming out. One of them is called No Time Too Soon, and and that's kind of way more mellow. There's another one called Blue Darling, I believe, and Nothing to Lose. So since I guess kind of, if I saw your bio and said you kind of took a step back and spent a lot of time, rediscovering your own music. And these more recent albums tend to be a little bit more, more mellow and, less more of that electrified, hard driving sound you had with the Cabin Killers.
Yeah, well, the Cabin Killers was sort of like a mix between, we were kind of like a bluegrass old time band, like with drums, and I played some electric guitar in that band. There's some on the record, but very little live. But it definitely was more high energy than the most recent record I put out. I guess I sort of just have been evolving as a person in these groups, but just realized that, dynamics are really important.
Uh-huh.
And being an artist sort of really, you can't appreciate something that is just balls to the wall the whole time unless there's a little bit of a break from it. Just
right.
Like everything in life, you gotta have variety, and you can't have light without the dark. So.
Yeah, well, I'm very impressed. I really enjoyed listening to, some of these tunes that I've been listening to. You mentioned Doc Watson as one of your influences. Doc Watson and Tony Rice, I would imagine, from the bluegrass area, and I can hear the similarities in the licks being played.
Oh, good. Yeah. Those are two of the biggest influences, at least on flat picking guitar stuff, which we do some of here with the Sam Grisman project. Now we do a whole pretty large acoustic portion of our set we don't plug in, we use only microphones. We go totally old school, which a lot of bands nowadays they don't. There's just a lot of there's a lot of great bands out. There's just a different sound, we're not doing the jam grass thing. We're playing some really iconic tunes that David Grisman wrote, and a lot of there's a lot of our own versions of songs that we like to sing, originals and traditionals, but I think that's something that sets it apart from other bands, is that we only do microphones. It's really easy to want to plug your acoustic instrument in and be able to hear it really loud, but then you lose all the dynamics, and it completely takes away the true sound of bluegrass.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with that. I was looking at the album Lonesome Hillside, which you did with a gentleman by the name of Bobby Henry. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, Bobby's been a huge part of my musical journey. He's one of 5 brothers, the Henry brothers, that are semi-famous in the whole Naples, Rochester area. They're in their 50s and 60s, much older than me, but I grew up as a kid listening to them play like barn dances and, square dances just around the Italy Valley hills there. And my parents were friends with them, and we would always go to potlucks and I'd see them play. And I finally, when I was a teenager, I ended up getting together with a couple of those guys and then really started to enjoy playing with Bobby. So we played together as a duo for a while, and sometimes as a trio with his brother Doug on bass. But Bobby and I had a project going for a number of years there and put out that record. It's just a collection of our favorite stuff. But I learned a lot from Bobby about just playing guitar with him. He's a fantastic musician, and particularly his rockabilly band. I just think they're the best rockabilly band I've ever heard. He's great at all styles, but they're definitely a band to check out. They are still playing. They don't play very often, but they do still play. And Brian Williams is the upright bass player. He's a pretty well-known Rochester bass guru.
So do you think the three of you are going to continue to perform together for a while once you get back, you and Rick and Chris?
Yeah, we are. The Sam Grisman project, we're touring pretty heavily this year, so we're actually only home for about a week.
Wow.
When we play the Opera House, and we're doing a Southeast tour, like DC down to Virginia and Carolinas, and Jacksonville, Florida, Charleston, Atlanta. So when we're home, usually for like 1 or 2 weeks at a time, at least in the next couple of months, we will be playing probably one or two shows as a trio somewhere in the Northeast.
Uh-huh. Well, that's good.
So we're definitely going to keep that thing going. Actually, the next time we're playing up there is with the Sam Grisman Project in April, but the trio thing in the Fredonia is something we're really looking forward to when we come back home, kind of like our homecoming show.
Nice, good. Well, it's nice to be able to have a chance to talk to you and know that you're going to be settling down in New York and in the region, because I think the area is a pretty nice area for the kind of music you play, bluegrass and old timey music and stuff like that. With that Appalachian sound. I mean, I think it fits the region pretty well, but I don't think there are enough bands playing it in the region.
Well, yeah, there's not enough bands necessarily doing it justice. There's a lot of love for that music in the area, and I think what we enjoy doing is focusing on more on the songs, and if they're good songs. So, we try to only choose things to play and sing that we really feel, a song with a good story or something that makes you feel some type of deep emotion. And we still pick tunes, instrumental tunes here and there, in between. But I think that's important to know. That's one of our main focuses, is really being just critical about our own songwriting, especially, and also the songs that we choose to cover. It's gone through a lot of filtering over the years. There's a lot of repertoire that has been discarded.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to know that it's really nice to know that you've got that, because I think the show's going to bring to the Opera House a lot of originality, a lot of versatility, and it's nice to have a band that's centered locally come to the Opera House and strut its stuff. So we'll certainly be looking forward to hearing your concert on the 24th, Aaron.
Yeah, we can't wait to check out that venue. We've only seen pictures, but we're really looking forward to it, and hopefully we get some good friends who want to come share the experience.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I know it's always busy touring, so I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks again. Good luck with the rest of the tour.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Tickets for this live music concert featuring Aaron Lipp, Chris English, and Rick Robertson are on sale now and can be purchased online at www.fredopera.org or by calling the box office at 716-679-1891. Tickets are $13 for adults and $5 for students. The Kathy and Jesse Marion Art Gallery at the Rockefeller Arts Center on the SUNY Fredonia campus has a new exhibit opening on Tuesday, February 27th, with an opening reception on Friday, March 3rd, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Entitled Miscommunication, Language and Power in Contemporary Art, the exhibit explores the power of language in a cultural context. I spoke with the curator of the exhibit, Ms. Amy Kahng, about some of the representative pieces that will be shown in the exhibit. I'm pleased to welcome now to the podcast Miss Amy Kahng. Amy is a PhD candidate in art history at SUNY Stony Brook, and she is the curator of the upcoming exhibit at the Jesse and Marion Art Gallery at the Rockefeller Arts Center that will be opening on Tuesday, February 28th. There will be an opening reception on Friday, March the 3rd at 6:30 p.m., and that's going to run through April. So welcome, Amy, to the podcast. So good to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me on.
You're welcome. Now, let's talk a little bit about the exhibit on the whole, to try and get a sense of what it is that you have curated here, what's been created, and we might as well start off with the title of Miscommunication and see where we go from there.
Yeah, so the title of the exhibition is Miscommunication, and subtitle Language and Power in Contemporary Art. So basically this exhibition, I was thinking about the ways that language inherently carries power, and there's different kinds of politics and power dynamics that are embedded within language, and that includes like different different kinds of languages, gesture, also like dialect. So yeah, this exhibition, there's about 15 or so artists. It kind of depends on it's traveling. So in each iteration, there's maybe varying between like 7 to 15 artists. And these artists are engaging with things like, English language learning programs and how, English language dominance is, happening over the world. In East Asia, kids are learning English from like infanthood, and in the US, people are, treated as kind of like other if they're not speaking, I guess, like perfectly grammatically correct English. Also thinking about, the like loss and decimation of indigenous languages, and the ways also that like dialect and kind of manners of speech and gesture affect how you're perceived in terms of like your education level or your class and things like that. Also kind of racial too, people who speak with like Black vernacular English seen as like maybe that type of language being unprofessional or something like that. So yeah, so it's kind of like a, I guess, overview of what the conceptually what the exhibition is about.
It's a fascinating topic. I've always been a person who's been interested in language as a means of communication, because I used to when I taught acting to students at SUNY Fredonia, I was always trying to get across to them the idea that theater is an art of language, and how you speak the words and how you intone them and how you get them across can carry off a lot more meaning than just worrying about what the emotion is or anything like that. Language is not infallible. There's so much space between the words that come out of your mouth and what you may or may not mean by using a particular word or phrase or something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the way that you're saying something can also, create a different kind of meaning and how, the person is receiving it, or you could be putting on a certain kind of way of expressing something. Like one of the artists, Kim Schoen, she hired this actress to kind of perform this like academic speak talk where she's speaking in a very like, it seems like she's giving this very heady, I don't know, lecture, and she's using this very like professional gesture, but she's actually just speaking gibberish. And so she's kind of revealing the ways that like these kinds of ways of language can be also constructed and can perform a certain kind of class or knowledge level.
Yes, I saw the piece. I didn't hear the language, but when I saw it, I said, "Boy, I would have liked to have been the actor in that. I would have would have been a very, very interesting challenge as an actor to go in there and do that kind of thing." Now, you and I are about to embark on something I find kind of ironic in a sense, just simply because we're going to try and take a look at some of these individual pieces so the audience gets some idea of what they're like. But we're going to do that with language. We don't have visual aids. This is an audio podcast. So are you up for the challenge?
Yeah. Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. So I would like to suggest that you take a piece that you really like first, and then I'll take a piece, and then we'll see where we go from there. So which of the pieces would you like to start off with to sort of describe to the audience that you found particularly interesting?
I think one of the works that kind of started me off on this, conceptualizing this exhibition was the video work by Kahng. Should I just go through and describe what the work is?
Yes, please. Yeah, give it a shot.
Yes, sure. So he's a video artist, and he made this short video called "Follow Me." And in the video, he is he recorded footage of these babies who are just kind of sitting, and like they look like they're speaking, but they're not actually making any audible noise. But the sound that's playing is a beginning like English language audio tape. So it's like, hello, like nice to meet you, like, and it's like chapter 1, like, these sort of things, right? And so
yes.
the babies, so there's these little like, Asian babies who look like they're speaking this beginning audio tape, and then cut between shots of these verbalizing, fake verbalizing the audio tape. There's also footage of a like oral procedure. It's called the frenuotomy. I think some people also have it done, if you're like tongue tied or something like this. But it was a really common procedure. And I think it still happens moderately frequently now in East Asia where, parents will have their children have a frenulotomy, surgery, because it's believed that like it'll help loosen their tongue and help them to be able to pronounce kind of like the English pronunciation more like fluently and more, it'll be like easier for them to learn,
Huh.
pick up English as a language, like their mouth will be like, more, I guess, comfortable or something like that. And it's really like a pseudoscience. It actually, there's not really any evidence that says that actually, happens. But I think that this work was just really fascinating to see that, thinking about the ways that these kids, in East Asia and across the world are learning English as these little babies. And then, not only are they, kind of forced to learn English to try to survive in this like English language dominated, global society, but it's even like affecting or kind of like being like affected onto their bodies. Like they're even, their physical bodies are being like modified in order to be able to participate in this English language society.
Yes, I had never heard of that procedure before. When I looked at the piece and kind of saw the description, I was, amazed. I think shocked was a better word. That people would actually think that modifying the human oral cavity underneath the tongue would actually help you speak
Absolutely.
English if you weren't a native English speaker. That's the extremes to what some people will go to be able to have that kind of facility.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just warn people who watch the video that it is a little bit like if you're squeamish, there's a little bit of like, blood. You're seeing the procedure happen and it just kind of shows up on the screen and I feel like I have to close my eyes when it comes up.
I understand. I understand. So let me give you a piece that I saw that I found fascinating. It looks for all intents and purposes when you're probably about 10 feet from it like a standard woven Native American basket.
Hmm.
And it's really a very beautiful basket too when you look at it. But upon closer inspection, the basket carries a ton of cultural weight. Can you describe that piece of artwork for me, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So that work is by an artist named Shan Gosshorn, and she's a Cherokee artist, or she was. She passed a few years ago. I will have to preface this by saying that in this iteration at the Marion Gallery, unfortunately, this basket will not be able to be traveling and will not be
Ah,
able to be shown. But it will be at a couple of the next stops. So if people, are able to drive around and see other SUNY locations, they could see this work in person. Um, would you like me to still describe
yes. Oh, yes.
the
I
work?
still would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
So it's this beautiful basket woven by this artist Jan Gothorn, and she it's woven out of pieces of documents that are from the Carlisle um, Indian boarding school, and so her work, she's really thinking about the ways that the colonial violence of English and assimilation on indigenous populations in the US. And so we have this really horrible history in the US of these Indian boarding schools that were incredibly violent and they took indigenous children from their families and forced them to go live in these boarding schools where they could not speak their native language, like their home, tribal language, and they would get in a lot of trouble or they would be like hurt if they did try to speak those languages. And so these boarding schools were meant to like really whitewash or like kind of Americanize these indigenous children. And through that process, they ended up, a lot of these indigenous languages are really at the threat of of going extinct. And so in this work, she takes copies of documents from the Carlisle Indian boarding school and weaves them together to create this basket. And then on the front of the basket, there's uh, individual. He was an individual who was kind of taken up as the poster child of the Carlisle Indian boarding school. And so she weaves together two photos of him. One prior to boarding school, where he's like in his indigenous kind of dress and long hair, and then one of the after picture where he has like the short hair. He's like in Western dress. Um, and she like weaves them together to kind of like bridge together his I guess sort of disjointed identity that he ends up, having through this process. But yeah, the Carlisle Indian boarding school, they like took him up as like this, like, I guess, success story to them of their successful, assimilation, which in fact is, very violent and a really horrible history that we have to contend with in the U.S.
Yes, that's what I found so haunting, in fact, about the piece is that when you stand away from it, when you stand a distance from it, it just looks like any other straw woven basket, and in and of itself is beautiful. But then you get closer and you see the Carlisle shredded documents woven in, and then you really zoom in on that image of that assimilated Native American, and you can see the two sides, and I don't know that image. I found very, very haunting, and in a lot of ways,
Absolutely.
kind of disturbing as I kind of looked at it. It just with one image, there was just all of this history of the colonization of the American West, shall we say, and it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to let my listeners know that they'll be able to see that image if they look at the walkthrough video that'll be posted in the show notes. So that image does exist. They can get a look at it if they want to. Okay, what's another image that you found particularly appealing to you as you curated this?
There's just like so many of the things that are for me to choose.
All right, I'll pick one more since you
go ahead. Yes,
it's like I think. I didn't realize this when I started this, but I think it's like asking you to pick who your favorite child is. So
it's actually a little bit.
So maybe it's easy.
All the names, and I'm like, which one?
So maybe it's easier for me to do that. So the last one I'll pick, and this is because I do have a little bit of a fascination with computers and how computer technology actually it gets incorporated into art. And contemporary artwork, and that's the one that's called Museum Manners for Siri, and I believe that the artist is pronounced Jisoo Chung. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Jisoo Chung. She's actually a dear friend of mine from LA, but so Jisoo Chung is a Korean national, but based in LA now, an LA-based artist, and I love this work, Museum Manners for Siri. It's very charming and silly, and it's very much her personality too. If you ever get the chance to meet her or have her do a talk, but in the work, she's dictating to her phone Siri, like basically these kind of museum kind of etiquette rules, and then Siri is attempting to transcribe her dictation, but because she's speaking in like an accented English. English isn't her first language. Siri is like constantly making, mistakes with what she's, saying. It's like reading her saying, she's saying like, take a step back. And then Siri says like, stab in the back or something like that. And so you can see how the text is on the screen. You see how like Siri is doing it incorrectly. And as Siri is doing it incorrectly, Jisoo Chung, the artist, she is also performing and acting out the ways that Siri is misunderstanding her English. So it's kind of quite like absurd, and it's very it's really funny to see and just like imagine this sort of frustration that she has trying to like communicate with Siri, but also just like seeing and you're realizing the ways that the technology itself is biased because it's biased towards a certain kind of English pronunciation, and is not really able to accommodate for different ways of speaking English, and so yeah, that makes it's very present in this kind of work, I guess, too.
Well, Amy, it's been delightful to talk to you. It's always delightful to talk for me to be able to talk to young scholars in any field, and I wish you luck, and I want to congratulate you on having won the 2020 SUNY Prize for performing arts creation and curation. That's quite a feather in your cap as you go forward, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of your work out there, both in the SUNY system and beyond.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This was really a delight.
Oh, great. It was a delight talking to you. Thank you, Amy. Bye-bye. Miscommunication, Language and Power in Contemporary Art will be on exhibit from February 27th until mid-April. Gallery hours and more information on the exhibit can be found by going to the gallery's website at www.fredonia.edu/about/art-gallery. Here's the arts calendar for the upcoming 2 weeks. Most of the action is taking place at the SUNY Fredonia School of Music. Here's a list of events. Ethos New Music Group presents the chamber ensemble 5 by 5 on Friday, February 24th at 8 p.m. in the Rausch Recital Hall. Liederabend, Brahms and Beyond, is a faculty recital featuring members of the voice and piano faculty on Saturday, February 25th at 8 p.m. in Rausch Recital Hall. Violinist Marcus Placci will be in residence on Sunday, February 26th from 1 to 6 p.m. with a master class and recital in Rausch Recital Hall. A Puerto Rico benefit concert will be given on Wednesday, March 1st at 8 p.m. in Rausch Recital Hall. The Robert Jordan Piano Festival will take place all day on Friday, March 3rd in Rausch Recital Hall. The Fredonia Wind Ensemble will perform in King Concert Hall on Saturday, March 4th at 8 p.m. Fredonia Oboe Day will take place on Sunday, March 5th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Rausch Recital Hall. The Fredonia Jazz Orchestra will perform on Tuesday, March 7th in Rausch Recital Hall at 8 p.m. And finally, the College Symphony will perform on Wednesday, March 8th in King Concert Hall at 8 p.m. All of these events are free and open to the public. If you have a coming arts event and would like to get it mentioned on the arts calendar, send an email to operahouse@fredopera.org or call the box office at 716-679-1891 with your information. What you just heard for the past 10 seconds was silence. Much can be communicated with silence, and the art of mime is designed to communicate with silence. Mime and mime artists get a pretty bad rap in American culture, but in many other cultures, mime is considered to be a high art form, physically precise and demanding. The Department of Theater and Dance will be showcasing the art of mime with their next upcoming Walter Glure main stage series production of Eenie Meenie Miney Mime. The production is under the direction of Dr. Nestor Bravo Goldsmith, who trained in physical theater and mime in his home country of Argentina. I had a chance to speak with him about his training and what he hopes to achieve with this unique production. I'm very, very pleased to welcome to the podcast Dr. Nestor Bravo Goldsmith. Dr. Goldsmith is an associate professor in the Department of Theater and Dance, where he teaches history of the theater, script analysis, theater for social change. He runs the Fredonia Young Company, and he is also the coordinator of the Bachelor of Arts program at SUNY Fredonia. Nestor, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in your podcast, Tom.
You're welcome. Now, of course, the reason that I wanted to get you on is because you're doing this kind of unique show, it seems to me. I haven't been able to gather much information about it. It's entitled Eenie Meenie Miney Mime. And I know it seems to be sort of oriented for children. It's a short show. So the first thing, though, I want to do is I want to get a little bit of background on you in terms of your approach to why you chose to do a mime show, because you have a background in that.
Yes. I was trained in Argentina for several years in corporeal mime and then comedia dell'arte and other physical theater techniques. But well, that is part of the reason. But also because I think it's important to create works that are oriented for younger audiences, and families. They are the future spectators or audiences in theater. So this project is also one of the objectives to form new audiences, and also because I think that physical theater in general and mime in particular have a lot of pictures that we want to share with an audience. Let's say that in general, we can say that, but this is an ancient art. Yes, we can trace it back to Greece and Rome, but also it was present in Asian theater extensively. And so as we prepared this show, we are somehow connected with our heritage as theater people, and this art is a way of, as I said before in another conversation, it's a way of harnessing silence and articulating silence, and also tapping into a way of communication that transcends cultural boundaries, national boundaries, verbal language also, to convey meaning to an audience. And I like to think that I'm on the audience that is going to enjoy the show are going to be, for example, individuals with hearing disabilities, for example. They're going to be able to enjoy from the beginning to the end the whole show, and also it has educative purposes. Of course, we are going to present first at Fredonia in Bartlett Theatre, but then we are touring and presenting the show in an intermediate school for 600 students. And so this is it's a visual spectacle. Yeah. I would say that the proper way to identify the audience who attends this show is a spectator rather than audience. Yeah, spectator has to do with hearing. A spectator has to do with seeing. Yeah? And this is a visual spectacle, and it's apt for everybody, not just youth. We are targeting also adults, individuals. The show has different levels of understanding, if you will. Yes, and so adults, individuals can enjoy also and get something from the show in relation to the messages, in relation to the style itself, and so on. And obviously, children are going to enjoy it. This is participative also. We engage the audience in different moments during the performance. So it's a entertaining show. It's a meaningful show. It's a novelty to some extent, because we are used to do verbal theater, yes, and staging more traditional plays. This is a different approach to theater that I think is going to be interesting for the audience to see.
Now, how do you, as someone who practices this kind of theater, physical and mime theater, get over the cultural hump of most Americans thinking about Marcel Marceau and only that aspect of mime? It has a deeper background and a deeper history than that, but I think on the surface, too many Americans think of it as things that clowns do for laughs or something along those lines. And of course, you know, the famous pushing against the wall routine that they've seen. How do you get over that particular cultural roadblock to tell audiences there's more to it than that?
Yes, there is a lot of cliches around mime and the world of clowns also. But let me say that I have the fortune to see the work of Marcel Marceau. Marcel Marceau was a master of miming, and he let's just say that when he went to Japan, and people who follows no theater, for example, which is a traditional art in Japan, and they saw the work of Marcel Marceau, they clapped, yes, and extensively, and recognized the quality of his work. He was a poet of a movement, and it was so uplifting to see the work, and inspiring actually. And he was an individual who was able to devised a show, a pantomime in his head as he was traveling to a country to perform a show, and he was able to perform right away that idea. It's like a writer who has a poem in their head, and then they write down. Marcel Marceau was able to do that in space, with his body. And so this is a difficult art. It takes a lot of time, a lot of training to develop the skill that you need to do it properly, if you will. So I think that if some member of the audience has some research about the work of mime and physical theater, they are going to be surprised, and find a display of physical action that are meaningful, that are novel, that are surprising, that could be mind-blowing also, because there are many surprises in the work. Yes.
Mind-blowing. Well, okay. That's a selling point right in and of itself. So the company and the cast. Now, I assume, and also a little bit about the process. Now, I assume that this show was created by the ensemble. There was no script that they walked into and were handed. They had to create these stories from probably no more than outlines or sketches or something along those lines. And so talk to me about the process of how this particular show was developed and formed into what the audience will come to see.
Okay, yes. We took the tradition of Commedia dell'arte as an inspiration here. So the first step was to create these scenarios that are basically outlines that just describe what happened in a scene. I was responsible of creating the 8 scenarios that we are staying here, and then I presented that outline, this draft of just a set of instructions and ideas to the company, and through improvisation and a devising process, we ended up creating these 8 pantomimes or mimodramas or scenarios that we call those scenarios following the tradition of the Commedia dell'arte. We have this show that lasts between 50 minutes and an hour, which is a lot of time for this kind of work. I think this is very well done. Yeah, I think that the students arrived to a point that they were to some extent mastering their bodies, and also the inner life of the characters that they are going to portray, not verbally but physically, with physical language or body language. And I want to say that today perhaps words are so devaluated, yes, and sometimes we say things that are not true, and that is becoming more and more common. So I think that silence and non-verbal action are pretty honest. Yeah? You cannot lie through physical action. Yes, the audience is going to read you pretty well when you're lying. Yes, and so in that sense, there is a kind of political side of this. Yes, and in a good sense, yes, we are promoting honesty through a visual language. Yes, and but this is just one aspect of it.
Well, I think it's an important aspect, though, if I can jump in. So it's so nice to hear you talk about this art form as really having the body and the physical be the conveyors of the truth of the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and I think that especially young audiences are going to appreciate the show very much. They are more connected with their bodies, and as they play frequently, and we adults are more separated from that experience. We are more centered in our brain and our thoughts, yes, and interacting through, I don't know, mass media, yes, through a phone or the computer. So we put on stage the body, and it's utterly visible for the audience. And
Fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Now, let me ask you one final question. Are you actually working in the empty space? In other words, do you have a lot of technical support helping you out, or is it really just the empty space with a few boxes, maybe a few objects, and that's really about it?
Yeah. Well, I think that the finest expression, yes, of emptiness is silence.
Yes.
And so it's a kind of contradiction to create a show that is non-verbal and have a lot of elements on stage. Yes. So the scenic design is pretty simple. The background is black solid, and with some element that help to just enrich the colorful show. But the costume is important here, but basically the space is empty. We use just 4 little blocks sometimes, and a panel that enter and exit, and the rest is the actors are in charge of creating this universe through physical actions. We literally make visible the invisible. Yes. So there is nothing on the stage, but we create a universe, yes, through the work of the actor and with the contribution of the audience, yes. And because, as I said before, we are inviting some of them, especially children, if they are in the room, they are going to be invited to help us with their imagination to complete the story and improvise with us in some moment of the show. And that is something that the audience is going to enjoy, yeah, in a very safe and funny way. Yes,
good.
Not aggressive at all. Yeah, in a very gentle way. We're going to invite some member of the audience to help us. Yeah,
that will be
dramatic action.
That will be fun, because I know, again, it's one of those things where if you really want to test yourself as an actor, act in front of children, because you can't fool children.
Yes. It's the most difficult audience.
Yes, they are. Well, Nestor, it was great to see you again, and have this chance to talk to you about this show. I think this might be the first show that you're doing where you have this exposure for the work that you do. Since you've been in the department, so it should be something that audiences should look forward to and seeing. I know, getting a chance to see some quality physical theater is really difficult these days. So bringing that to Fredonia, I congratulate you for that. I think it's going to be kind of exciting.
Thank you. We just want to reiterate the invitation to families. Yes, parents are going to have a rich experience along with their children together. They are going to leave the theater feeling entertained, yes, and rewarded in multiple levels, aesthetically, intellectually, yes, and emotionally too. So they're cordially invited.
Oh, great. We'll make sure we get the word out. Thank you once again, Nestor, and good luck with the performance. Eenie Meenie Miney Mime will be presented on Friday and Saturday, March 3rd and 4th at 7 p.m. in the Bartlett Theater at the Rockefeller Arts Center, with matinee performances on Saturday, March 4th and Sunday, March 5th, beginning at 2 p.m. Tickets are available through the campus box office at 716-673-3501 or online at www.fredonia.edu/tickets. And that's it for this Ashes to Ashes edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat. My thanks to Mr. Aaron Lipp, Miss Amy Kahng, and Dr. Nestor Bravo Goldsmith for being my guests on this episode. Notes from the Aisle Seat is a production of the 1891 Fredonia Opera House in Fredonia, New York. For more information on any of the Opera House's events, call the box office at 716-679-1891, visit the website at www.fredopera.org, or email at operahouse@fredopera.org. Notes from the Aisle Seat is now available wherever you get your podcasts, and also on the Opera House YouTube channel. If you like this podcast, please consider following us by clicking the follow button on our homepage at aisleseat.podbean.com and spreading the word through your social media feeds. If you have an arts event you'd like featured on the podcast, why don't you drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org and we'll see about featuring your event. Please try to give us a month's advance notice if possible to facilitate timely scheduling. If you have any suggestions, comments, or criticisms of the podcast, just drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org. We'll be glad to receive your feedback. Our next episode will be available on Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. I'm Tom Laughlin, and until then, be safe out there, and be kind to one another.
Oh, watch out now, now.